Okay. Hare Krishna. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Brajajana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Shri Radha Madhava ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Nittai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So it's showing 20 degrees sunny where I am, which is quite comfortable. I hope wherever you are is also nice and comfortable. So thank you for dialing in. Is the audio good enough? Okay. All right. So thank you for dialing in this wonderful, pleasant Friday evening. We are continuing to speak about Srila Haridas Thakur. I'd like to thank the seniors, all the acharyas and everybody at ISKCON Manchester Temple and within ISKCON for giving me the opportunity to speak on such an illustrious devotee of the Lord. So we'll try and spend some time praising this wonderful devotee, Srila Haridas Thakur, and hopefully benefit from the life instructions that we have to take. So before we go into the subject matter, we'll offer some prayers to the Parampara, the Acharyas, so that they can bless us and we can have some worthwhile time spent tonight listening to the glories of Srila Haridas Thakur. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshuraunamalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are here today to discuss glories of Srila Haridas Thakur, and we are reading from the Antya Leela and the third chapter within the Antya Leela of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And we've spent one session. This is the second concluding session today. So before we go into the Chaitanya Charitamrita for today's session, there is an interesting incident from Srimad Bhagavatam that I'd like to make a reference to. This is from the 6th canto, 3rd chapter. We all are very, very familiar with the story of Ajamila and how he gets a second chance simply by chanting the Lord's name, Narayan. So Shukadev Goswami explains this conversation that is going on between Yamaraj and his associates. So the Yamaraj's associates, they go running to Yamaraj and say, what is this? Who are these brilliant, effulgent people? They didn't let us do our job. And why were we not allowed to claim Ajamila? It was our job to go and claim Ajamila. And this is not fair, and they were complaining to Yamaraj, their master. So Yamaraj explains, and there's a very beautiful verse, 6th canto, 3rd chapter, number 22. Etavaneva lokesmin pumsa dharma parasmita bhakti yogo bhagavati tannama granadibi. So Yamaraj is explaining to his associates, and Shukadev Goswami is narrating to Parikshit Maharaj, and Shuddha Goswami is listening, and then it's coming down in disciplic succession through Prabhupada to us. So the translation of this beautiful verse, Etavan eva lokesmin pumsa dharma parasmita, is that every individual's primary occupation to chant the holy name, and devotional life begins with chanting of the holy name. Anybody interested in uplifting himself spiritually or stepping away from the material condition to elevate oneself, the first step, the beginning stage is chanting of the holy name. And even if the holy name is not uttered clearly, correctly, technically right, it will still liberate you. So there are Acharyas tell us three types of chanting. One is Namaparad, where we are chanting offensefully. We really just don't have any regard for this process of chanting. Then there is Namabhas. Namabhas means not technically correct chanting, but offenseless chanting, sincerely making an effort, trying to utter the holy name. And then there is Shuddhanam. So even Namabhasa chanting can liberate you. This is what the scriptures are telling us. But of course, it has to be offenseless. So liberation can be achieved even by Namabhas chanting, and that is what Ajamila was doing, and therefore he qualified himself to get away from the clutches of Yamadutas, and Vishnudutas gave him a second chance. We all know the story. He chanted Narayan. But from Namabhasha, all of us as practitioners within the Hare Krishna movement, some of us are fortunate enough to have spiritual masters and Shiksha Gurus and Diksha Gurus. We must aim for Shuddhanam, or that state or that kind of chanting where we become eligible for Krishna's love, his mercy, direct mercy, engagement in loving service with him. Bhakti or devotional life or can be achieved only at the Shuddhanama stage. At Namabhas, you can still continue, you will get something, liberation, but a pure devotee doesn't desire liberation either. What is the desire of a pure devotee? He wants to remain in service no matter what his condition of life is, no matter where he is. Swarga, Dharti, Patal, Bhulok, Golok, wherever. The pure devotee is only and only aspiring for loving service to the Lord, whatever his physical condition is. So, as good practitioners, we move from Namaparad to Namabhash to Shuddha Prem, Shuddha Nam, where we get Bhakti. So, Haridas Thakur, this glorious, amazing devotee of the Lord, is such a devotee who perfected the art or the practice of chanting the holy names. So we want to take some lessons from Srila Haridas Thakur's life and implement in our own so that we can become a little bit like him. So with that, let's get into understanding some more takeaway lessons from Srila Haridas Thakur's life. We are studying once again from Antya Leela within Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is the third chapter. It's titled Glories of Srila Haridas Thakur. So we discussed briefly in the previous session last week as to who Haridas Thakur is. But let's just remind ourselves once again very quickly. And to truly understand who Haridas Thakur is, we need to go to Vrindavan in the Brahma Vimohana Leela, where Lord Brahma gets illusion looking at Lord Krishna's pastimes. So Krishna Leela, Krishna book, and several other scriptures tell us there was a great demon. Krishna was in the form of a boy. Great demon Agahasura. Agahasura was fiery, such a fiery demon that not just humans but even demigods were afraid of him. And Krishna, this little boy, he just finished him as a matter of play. So Lord Brahma was very, very surprised. And he even noticed that when this demon died, the Jyoti, the soul from the demon's body, came out, and it was hovering in space, waiting for Krishna to come out of the demon's body. And then Agasura's soul merged into Krishna's. And Lord Brahma was convinced that this is Narayan. But then shortly after, what happens? Krishna is playing with the boys, and they are having such playful exchanges that Lord Brahma becomes illusioned again, and he thinks that this cannot be my Narayan. He's just a little boy, exchanging food stuff without any cultural etiquettes, and they're throwing things at each other. Lord Narayan certainly cannot be accessed by such coward boys and girls. So Brahmaji gets illusioned, and we know the story. Lord Brahma decides to take away all the calves, children of the cows, and some cows, and the cowherd boys and Krishna become a bit worried. And then Krishna says, "Do not worry, I will go and look for the cows." So Krishna goes to look for the cows, and when Krishna comes back, we all know that Brahmaji takes away all the cowherd boys as well. So Krishna comes back and notices that first it was the cows, and now it's the cowherd boys. Everyone's disappeared. And of course, Krishna is Krishna. So by his energy, he understands that it's Brahmaji's doing. And obviously, Krishna has plans. We all know from Krishna Lila that all the gopis, senior gopis in Vrindavan, and all the cows, the mother cows, they were constantly holding this desire that they wanted Krishna as their child. So Krishna decided this was the right time, and he expands himself into all the cowherd boys and all the calves, and Lord Brahma is surprised. And then when he notices that while the cowherd boys and calves are still lying in the place where he's hidden them, Krishna has expanded himself. And what he sees is a divine vision in front of him, where every calf and every cowherd boy is Narayan. And then he realizes that this Krishna little boy is indeed the source of all Narayans. And he surrenders and submits, and he repents very much. So Krishna says, don't worry, it's fine, no problem. But Lord Brahma is very repentful, and he goes to conduct some austerity and some tapasya as atonement for his misdeed. So like that, he goes and he's conducting some austerities, tapasya, and then he pleases Lord Krishna, and then Krishna appears in front of him. And Krishna says, Brahma, why are you conducting such austerities? I already told you there's no problem, no offense taken, you're forgiven, everything is fine. But Brahmaji was still grieving, but he gets pacified by Krishna's words. But he sees Krishna in Gauranga form. Krishna appears in Gauranga form in front of him. And Brahmaji says, my dear Lord, I have never seen such form of yours. Please, will you explain? And then Krishna says, yes, this is my golden form, Gauranga form, and it has not been manifested as yet, and it will happen in the age of Kali. And Krishna gives Lord Brahma some details. So Lord Brahma then requests, my dear Lord, will you allow me to participate in your pastimes? when you come as Gauranga? And Krishna says, yeah, that's no problem. You are free to join. And like that, Brahmaji gets the permission to participate in the Lord's pastime. But Lord Brahma makes one more request. He says, Krishna, I have one more request. And Krishna says, what is it? And then Lord Brahma says, you see, I am Brahma. I am supposedly the most intelligent being in the material world. And because of this, I sometimes am full of pride and ignorance. And I'm thinking that there is no one better than me. And because of this pride and arrogance, I commit mistakes. So I want that you crush my pride and you make me take birth in a very, very low standard family. Give me a very menial low birth so that I don't become illusion, so that I don't develop this pride, but still allow me to participate in your pastimes. And Krishna says, so be it, tathastu. And like that, we understand that Lord Brahma's wishes get fulfilled. And then Brahmaji appears as Haridas Thakur. And we discussed last time Haridas Thakur took birth 35 years before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he had a specific purpose. He perfected the art of chanting the holy names. But there was another personality around that time who was also very, very equally responsible for the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was Advaita Acharya. So Advaita Acharya and Haridas Thakur were very, very close to each other. And it is very easy to understand why that was. Who was Advaita Acharya? Advaita Acharya is Mahavishnu and Shiva together. And who's Haridas Thakur? He's Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma is born out of Vishnu, and therefore they are inseparable like that. So sometimes in devotee circles, we attribute the arrival of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to only Advaita Acharya. We all know Advaita Acharya did the prayers, and there is a beautiful bhajan that we sang on Advaita Acharya's appearance, and I'd like to just quickly make a reference to that. It goes, so Advaita Acharya is sitting at the bank of Ganga and he's reciting prayers and he's loudly calling for the Lord. He's saying, Omkara Garjanadi Ahoratra Sadgunam Aha Krishna Radhikanatha Prathanadi Bhavanam Dhupadipa Kasturicha Chandanadi Lepanam Sitanada Dveta Charnaravinda Bhavanam. So like that, Advaita Acharya is singing Homkara Garjanadi, loudly he's calling for Gauranga. He's saying, come Gauranga, I can't do it myself. You have to come yourself and deliver these people. But at the same time, Srila Haridas Thakur was also present. And both of these personalities together were equally responsible for the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There is a verse, verse number 226, we'll try and bring up on our screen. Prabhuji, do I have screen share rights as well?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, so I will just bring this verse up because we want to give references to these commentaries we are making so that devotees can remember. So this is chapter 3 and it's verse number 226. I'll just try and bring that up on the screen. See if it works. Yes, so How do I share? Shared screen. There you go. So have a look at this. If you can see my screen, devotees, it says, because of the devotional service, can everybody see?
Yes, yes, Prabhu.
Because of the devotional service of these two persons, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended as an incarnation. Thus he preached the holy name of the Lord in ecstatic love of Krishna to deliver the entire world. This is Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writing in CC Antilila, 3rd chapter, verse number 226. Dui janera bhakti Chaitanya Kaila avatar. Dui janera bhakti. Two people together were responsible for the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Advaitacharya was, of course, senior to Srila Haridas Thakur, and Srila Haridas Thakur was born in a lower grade family as per the civil setup of that time, and he was classed as a Yavana by birth, and Yavana doesn't, like I mentioned last week, doesn't refers to a particular class category or community, etc. Yavana refers to anybody who does not have any regard for the Vedic scriptures. So he was born in a family of meat eaters like that. And Sri Advaitacharya was, of course, born as a very, very qualified, high grade, high standard Brahmin. But they were inseparable like that, and both had immense amount of regard and affection for each other. So Advaitacharya once, very interesting pastime, he's performing the Shraddha ceremony of his father. Advaitacharya is performing the Shraddha ceremony, and he's invited all these Brahmanas, and Srila Haridas Thakur is also there. And the custom is that the Shraddha prasad, when the ceremony is completed, is given to the most qualified person in a meeting. And all the Brahmins there were thinking that we will get it or we will get it, and we are the high class Brahmanas, and Advaitacharya knows. But Advaitacharya did what? He gave the Shraddha Patra to Haridas Thakur. Because who was Haridas Thakur? He was Brahma himself. He was the best of all Brahmanas. And Advaitacharya understands. But the Brahmanas attending the ceremony didn't know this. And they became offended. And they decided to boycott the whole ceremony. And they boycotted Advaitacharya himself and left the ceremony and like that. And Srila Haridas Thakur was very sad, and he requested Advaitacharya to accommodate everyone. But Advaitacharya said, don't worry, we are okay. Don't worry about these so-called Brahmanas who cannot recognize the worth of a true devotee. And it so happens that the Brahmanas go home and they realize that generally in a Brahmana's family, the fire pit is always on because they are always ready to perform fire sacrifices. So when the Brahmanas reached home, all the fire pits extinguished. Even their cooking fires got extinguished. And they were getting agitated, calling out to their wives, we've not eaten anything there. Come on, quick, cook food quickly. But there was no fire. They even went to the neighboring village to get some fire, but it was of no avail. And then they realized that maybe it's because of offense to Advaitacharya. So they go and beg for forgiveness to Advaitacharya. And Advaitacharya says what? No, it's not me you have offended. You have offended Srila Haridas Thakur. Please beg forgiveness from him. So such is the impact of offending pure devotees of the Lord. And Advaitacharya, by his own example, is indicating that pure devotees of the Lord need to be respected completely. irrespective of their background, color, caste, creed, upbringing, birth, if they are practicing Shuddha Nam or even Namabhas, they are worthy of full respect. Mm. So what we'll do is we'll read a little bit from the pages of this third chapter. There are some very, very wonderful takeaways for us. Prabhuji, if I can ask you to support me with bringing the pages up 176 onwards, and maybe we can have one volunteer to read 176 till 189. We can
Until
read until Leela, third chapter. That's right.
Just give me 1 second.
Okay, Prabhuji.
I'll just bring it up.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, can I volunteer to read?
Yeah, sure. Sumit, please.
Yes, yeah. Do you like to bring the screen up as well if you have the rights?
Sumit is going to bring the screen up, isn't it? Sumit, are you going to bring?
I'm not host, but you can make me co-host.
Okay, no problem. I'll do that. Just give me 1 second. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So, Srila Haridas Thakur is such an amazing devotee of the Lord. He truly practiced the third verse of Shikshashtakam, which is Janadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtanya Shadahari. Starting with his own desire to become a lowborn, simply so that he could get rid of his pride of being Brahma. And then wanting to participate in the pastimes of the Lord, even at that cost. And because he was so humble and took upon such a lowly position, is why he could chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. Tanarapi Sunichinam, only in such a state, one should think oneself to be lower than a straw in the street. Only in such a state can one chant the names of the Lord constantly. So Haridas Thakur is the art of chanting perfected, personified. So let's just read from Chaitanya Charitamrita, verse number 176 till 189. Sumedha, if you want to go ahead, please.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It was mentioned in the assembly that Haridas Thakur chanted the holy names of Krishna 300,000 times a day. Thus, all the learned scholars began to discuss the glories of the holy name. Some of them said, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one is freed from the reactions of all sinful life. Haridas Thakur protested, these two benedictions are not the true result of chanting the holy name. Actually, by chanting the holy name without offences, one awakens his ecstatic love for the lotus feet of Krishna. When a person is actually advanced and takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord, who is very dear to him, he is agitated and loudly chants the holy name. He also laughs, cries, becomes agitated and chants just like a madman, not caring for outsiders. Liberation and extinction of the reactions of sinful life, which are two concomitant byproducts of chanting the holy name of the Lord. An example is found in the gleams of morning sunlight. As the rising sun immediately dissipates all the world's darkness, which is deep like an ocean, so the holy name of the Lord, if chanted once without offences, dissipates all the reactions of living beings' sinful life. All glories to that holy name of the Lord, which is auspicious for the entire world. After reciting this verse, Haridas Thakur said, O learned scholars, please explain the meaning of this verse. Haridas Thakur said, as the sun begins to rise even before it's visible, it dissipates the darkness of night. With the first glimpse of sunlight, fear of thieves, ghosts and demons immediately disappears. And when the sun is actually visible, everything is manifest, and everyone begins his religious activities and regulative duties. Similarly, The first hint that offenseless chanting of the Lord's holy name has awakened dissipates the reactions of sinful life immediately. And when one chants the holy names offenselessly, one awakens to the service in ecstatic love at the lotus feet of Krishna. Liberation is the insignificant result derived from the glimpse of the awakening of offenseless chanting of the holy name. While dying, Ajamila chanted the holy name of the Lord, intending to call his son Narayana. Nevertheless, he attained the spiritual world. What then to speak of those who chant the name of the Lord, the holy name, with faith and reverence? Sorry, Prabhu, which verse was I reading to?
Just 189.
Okay. Liberation, which is unacceptable for a pure devotee, is always offered by Krishna without difficulty. My devotees do not accept Salokya, Sarti, Sarupya, Samipya, or oneness with me, even if I offer these liberations, in preference to serving me.
Thank you,
Hare
Srila.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Wonderful. So the reason why we went through these verses translation is to confirm that all that we have just discussed in the last 20 minutes is from the scriptures. We're not making it up. It's as it is. Namabhash also is capable of improving your spiritual standard, but as devotees, we want to get to Shuddhanam. Only at the Shuddhanam stage, you get devotion to the Lord, and a pure devotee of the Lord does not desire for even liberation. He simply wants to remain engaged in the Lord's loving service wherever he is, whatever his physical or external condition is. That's what we read so far. So as I was trying to put a few things together for this, I thought it was nice to just to have a look at the physical location of where Srila Haridas Thakur was born, and it's not a mythical story. It's there are actual references to his place of appearance. I'm going to just try and share the screen with you now. So let me know when you can see. Is the screen visible?
Yes, yes.
So this is obviously Lord Brahma, and that's Srila Haridas Thakur. This is the most famous picture, a young boy chanting in front of the Tulsi leaf. And this is a place, Khulna district, exactly Jessore area, which is where Srila Haridas Thakur was born. And this line that you see is the border of Bangladesh and West Bengal. Bangladesh is a separate country. It was known as East Pakistan, when Pakistan had its control, and then India helped free Bangladesh up. So Bangladesh is a separate country, and this is Mayapur, Navadip. We are all familiar. So this is India. This line is the border of West Bengal and Bangladesh, and this is where Haridas Thakur was born. And just to put it into context, we're looking at the enlarged section of this map here. That's New Delhi, and this is the border of Bangladesh and West Bengal. So Khulna district, Jessore was the name of the town, and then of course Srila Haridas Thakur kept traveling, and then he spent some time in Pulia in the Mayapur region. So like that. So this is Srila Haridas Thakur's place of birth, and we've just spoken about the role that Sri Advaitacharya played as well. And this is a place where Srila Haridas Thakur spent a lot of time chanting. It's known as a Bhajan Kutir in Shantipur. Near Shantipur, ISKCON Manchester devotees, we were very fortunate, and there was a trip organized a few years ago. All of us went, and we had a really blissful time. We visited Srila Haridas Thakur's Bhajan Kutir, and I remember all of us chanted at least one full round, sat there. So a blissful experience. Hopefully we can all go sometime soon again. So So Srila Haridas Thakur is continuously traveling. I hope you managed to get glimpses of the images I shared. Yeah. So the idea is for you to meditate on these places and and pray to the Lord that hopefully conditions are right, that we can travel again. So Haridas Thakur constantly kept traveling, and he was in the Benapala forest when Ramachandra Khan decided to send a prostitute, and we all know the story we discussed last week, so we wouldn't go into that. But he then came to Chandapur, a place again at the border of Bangladesh and West Bengal, where he came to the house of Hiranya and Govardhan Majumdar, and they were big of kingly rich people of that time. They had control of a lot of land in that region. They were big landlords, and they were Hiranya and Govardhan Majumdar were actually the father and the uncle of Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami is one of the six Goswamis. So the six Goswamis, we know they gave up their life on the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And all of these personalities were very, very well established. We know Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. Who were they? They were ministers in the then king's reign. And they had unlimited amount of wealth and property. So sometimes people think that devotional service and taking up to God consciousness is a job for sentimentalist people. No, that's not the case. Only people who exhaust themselves materially. I repeat, only those people who exhaust themselves materially are able to appreciate spirituality. So all these Goswamis, including Rupa Sanatan and Raghunath Das Goswami, were very well-known people of those times, and they, at the height of their material prosperity, decided to give up the world-mindedness and then surrender to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the mission. So Haridas Thakur comes to this place, and he is friends with the priest of Hiranya and Govardhan Majumdar, and he decides to stay there for some time, and he's preaching. So just where we stopped, that's where the preaching starts. And Srila Haridas Thakur, while he's preaching the importance of the holy name, he says one very beautiful prayer verse. He says, Koti Janma Brahma Gyane Jai Mukti Nai. Koti Janma Brahma Gyane Jai Mukti Nai. Shuddha Nama Nama Bhase Jai Mukti Hoy. This is again exactly what we have just discussed. He says, 1,000 births as Brahma cannot give you the liberation that can be achieved simply by the chanting of the holy name. Namabhash, we've already discussed the concept, is good enough for liberation, but devotees want to achieve Sudanam. So what happens is at this time there is an envious Brahmin called Gopal Chakravarti, and he becomes envious of Srila Haridas Thakur, and he's starts to challenge Srila Haridas Thakur and says, what do you mean? What is your background? Where are you from? And what is the authority that you have to say something like this? Do you even know what God realization means and how difficult it is to practice devotional life? So he starts to challenge, because Gopal Chakravarti only sees Srila Haridas Thakur's external, a very simple, dark complexion person, born in a low family, not with a high background, etc. But Srila Haridas Thakur didn't take any offense. And Gopal Chakravarti in that challenging mood, goes on to say, if what you're saying is true, may my nose get chopped. Sometimes people challenge in that way. Meri naak kat jaye agar aisa ho jaye, or something like that, they say in Hindi. So he gives a challenge that, if what you're saying is true, if you think that, if you claim that achieving the love of God is so simple, simply by chanting his name, then may my nose get severed. And lo and behold, Haridas Thakur didn't have to do anything. Within 3 days, Gopal Chakravarti contracts leprosy and his nose starts to melt. And Hiranya and Govardhan Majumdar expel Gopal Chakravarti. They fire him from his job. He was a tax collector. And then, of course, they realize that Srila Haridas Thakur is not an ordinary personality. He's the best practitioner that they could have of the art of chanting the holy names. So what we want to do now is, I want to read the purport to verse number 213. There are some very wonderful takeaways from there. If we can bring up verse number 213, Prabhuji, and then maybe someone can volunteer to read the purport. 213. Yes.
Shall I read it, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. Is there a little bit more on top of this?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Okay, Bhakti is here. Okay, come.
Okay. Thank you, Bhakti. That purport is good.
Yeah, okay.
The characteristics of a Vaishnava and the characteristics of the Lord mentioned in this verse are very significant. In his Shastaka, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught the characteristics of a Vaishnava. Trinadapi Sunitena Narod Ivasahismana Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. A Vaishnava strictly follows this principle of being humbler than the grass and more tolerant than a tree, expecting no honor from others, but offering honor to everyone. In this way, a Vaishnava is simply interested in chanting about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and glorifying Him. Haridas Thakur epitomized this foremost order of Vaishnavism. Krishna, however, cannot tolerate any insults or blasphemy against a Vaishnava. For example, Prahlad Maharaj was chastised by his father Hiranyakashipu in so many ways, but Prahlad Maharaj tolerated this. Krishna did not. The Lord therefore came in the form of Narasimhadev to kill Hiranyakashipu. Similarly, although Sri Haridas Thakur tolerated the insult by Gopal Chakravarti, Krishna could not. The Lord immediately punished Gopal Chakravarti by making him suffer from leprosy. While instructing Srila Rupa Goswami about the many restrictive rules and regulations for Vaishnavas, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has very vividly described the effects of offences at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. Yadi Vaishnava aparad utte hati mata. Madhya 19.156. Offending or blaspheming a Vaishnava has been described as the greatest offense, and it has been compared to a mad elephant. When a mad elephant enters a garden, it ruins all the creepers, flowers, and trees. Similarly, if a devotee, properly executing his devotional service, becomes an offender at the lotus feet of his spiritual master or another Vaishnava, his devotional service is spoiled.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Bhakti Devi. So many wonderful takeaways. Two things mainly. One, a devotee of the Lord may tolerate offense, but the Lord will not tolerate any offense to his devotee. He will immediately take action. Very, very important. And the other bit right at the end is there is a verse from Bhagavad Gita, and me and Sumedh were discussing this. Sumedh, you remember the second chapter, Neha Bhikramana Shosti, where it says that devotional life, there is no loss or diminution, but the caution is but. You will lose everything you have earned if you engage in offending the devotees of the Lord. These are the two key messages from this purport, this narration from the life of Srila Haridas Thakur. One, the devotee may tolerate, but the Lord will not tolerate offense to his devotee. Konteya pratijani name bhaktya pranashati. My devotee will never perish, and I will always take care of him. And no loss, diminution, but offense to devotees of the Lord, everything gone. It's like an elephant taking a bath for hours and hours together and then rolling in mud again. So we have to be very mindful. If you think an offense has been committed, be honest and humble enough to own up, step up, call for a conversation, resolve it then and there. Because we need the support of devotees in our lives. It's not possible to do this on our own. The A of Krishna consciousness, the ABCDA is for association. And if we don't value it enough, then it is going to be a little bit difficult. You might find that. So from Haridas Thakur's life, and there are a lot of commentaries given by the Goswamis. Jiva Goswami especially has commented that anybody who hears the glories of Srila Haridas Thakur, maybe at Namaprad or Namabhasha stage, will eventually within their lifetime get the love of the name of God. Eventually. So simply by listening to the glories of such amazing devotees such as Haridas Thakur, you will attain love of God. So at ISKCON Manchester, we are taking the time and effort to constantly present these sessions. Every Friday we are talking about one senior devotee of the Lord. This last 2 Fridays was Srila Haridas Thakur. And we will carry on reading from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is again a very, very wonderful scripture. We've mentioned previously that it's complete by itself. 11,000 verses, 1,000 references from various scriptures, has everything you need to know. Don't worry if you don't have the Srimad Bhagavatam. Don't worry if you don't have the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur once said that and he was speaking in the Bengal region, that if you lose everything in a flood, because flood is the most natural calamity in that area, it comes every 4 years, Ganga comes to touch Mahaprabhu's feet in the ISKCON premises every 4 years. So Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, if you lose everything, just one possession if you're allowed to carry, pick up Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita with you. Such is the importance. And we have Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita available at ISKCON Manchester. We can support your reading. Yes, the material is available online, but it's very nice to open the pages of the book. There is a very, very different potency of holding a book in your hands and going through the pages. Today we are very fortunate that the copies are easily available, but there was a time when it wasn't the case. So let's appreciate. And these pages have been printed so that even if you don't manage to read the entire work by yourself, These pages are printed with a quality to last 500 years. So 5 generations will benefit. So we urge you to not just attend, continue to attend, but also encourage one another to have these wonderful literatures in your house, and take time to read together. One last pastime we'll pick up from Srila Haridas Thakur's life, and we're nearing close time, is when the Muslims and the Hindus and everybody in that time, everybody was quite envious of the fame that Srila Haridas Thakur was gathering over a period of time, even though he was a very young brahmachari devotee. And Mayadevi had come, and Ramachandra Khan had sent a prostitute, and any offense to him, the Lord was taking seriously, and the individuals were getting punished. So he gathered a lot of popularity. So the Nawab of that time was told that a non-Hindu is practicing Hinduism, and this is something that they couldn't tolerate at that time. And therefore it was decided to punish Srila Haridas Thakur, and we all know the story. He was taken into 22 marketplaces and beaten mercilessly. And all through, he would just continue to chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. It was as if there was no impact on him. And when the Jallads or the executioners were taking Srila Haridas Thakur from marketplace to marketplace, they realized he's just not impacted. And then they realized that he must be a peer. Peer is considered a saint. So they then in turn begged for Srila Haridas Thakur's forgiveness, and they said, O peer, if you don't die, we will have to die. So please have mercy on us. And Sri Jiva Goswami's commentaries, if you read, there is a lot of emphasis on meditating on these pastimes. And Jiva Goswami says, if a devotee is able to meditate on the bliss that Srila Haridas Thakur was maintaining or experiencing while he was being taken from one and the next marketplace, being beaten externally, such a person, if you're able to meditate on that bliss, will never experience any bodily discomfort. This is a word of Sri Jiva Goswami. So there is a lot of benefit from reading the pastimes of such exalted devotees of the Lord. And they are not sentimentalists. They are exalted personalities. We started with understanding Srila Haridas Thakur's background. So we know who he truly is. And then, of course, Srila Haridas Thakur was so merciful that he said, okay, if my life is a problem to you, just because I want you to be happy and peaceful, I will give up my body. So he took samadhi. And then he was put into the Ganga. And then obviously he wasn't really dead, he was in samadhi, so he swam all the way and he reached Shantipur. And Sri Advaitacharya was obviously very worried, but Advaitacharya received Haridas Thakur, and he again was very joyful. And they, as soon as they met, again, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. They carried on chanting like that. And this obviously increased the fame and popularity of Srila Haridas Thakur. And Srila Haridas Thakur was a senior in age to Mahaprabhu. And one of the final requests that Srila Haridas Thakur made to the Lord was that he wanted to leave his body before Mahaprabhu finished his pastimes. And it is, obviously Mahaprabhu also was very affectionate to Srila Haridas Thakur. So he wasn't really agreeing, but it is understood. Acharyas tell us that when there is an argument between the Lord and the devotee of the Lord, it is always the devotee of the Lord who should win, not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the individual has to be a pure devotee of the Lord. And the devotee's wish should be a devotional wish, not a otherwise desire. So Mahaprabhu eventually gave in and he said, okay, fine. And in his last final days, we know that Srila Haridas Thakur lived outside the Jagannath temple, and he was becoming frail in body condition, and so he wasn't able to chant so much. And then they agreed on a time. So Srila Haridas Thakur is considered similar to Bhishma Pitama, because Bhishma Pitama also had a boon to leave his body when he wanted. So like that, Haridas Thakur was also empowered, and between him and Mahaprabhu, they decided that it was time for Haridas Thakur to leave. And then Mahaprabhu performed Srila Haridas Thakur's final rites, carried Srila Haridas Thakur's body in his arms, and organized an amazing festival. Like that, the departure of Srila Haridas Thakur was celebrated. And I've got a little picture to show that I'll just bring up on the screen, and we can meditate on this amazing pastime and try and seek blessings from Srila Haridas Thakur and his glorious life. So this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and everyone's chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And Mahaprabhu is sad, and Srila Haridas Thakur's body is being carried. And with full pomp and celebration, the departure was planned like that. How much more glorification can be given to Srila Haridas Thakur when the Lord himself performed his final rites. So that brings us to the close of discussion of the pastimes of a very, very wonderful celebrated devotee of the Lord, Srila Haridas Thakur. I'd like to close by just reading briefly from one last verse, number 257, 257. If we could bring that up, and then we can call the session a close and open up for some questions and answers if there are any, or any commentaries or any realization that anybody would like to share. So yes, Prabhuji, if we can bring up 257, and we can just read commentary, and maybe we can have a volunteer, Gaura Mataji, my dear mom, if you like to read.
257.
Yeah, 257. It's coming up on the screen.
I can't see the screen, but I've got my book open. I'll read from there.
Yes, please. Yeah, the purport, please. Thank you so much.
In an indirect way, this verse explains the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, includes both the holy name of Lord Krishna and the name of Lord Rama. Lord Rama gives one the opportunity to be liberated, but simply by liberation one does not get actual spiritual benefit. Sometimes, if one is liberated from the material world but has no shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna, one falls down to the material world again. Liberation is like a state of convalescence in which one is free from a fever but is still not healthy. Even in the stage of convalescence, if one is not very careful, one may have a relapse. Similarly, liberation does not offer as much security as the shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. It is stated in the Shastra, O Lord, the intelligence of those who think themselves liberated, but who have no devotion is impure. Even though they rise to the highest point of liberation by dint of severe penances and austerities, they are sure to fall down again into material existence, for they do not take shelter at your lotus feet. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.32 refers to the lotus feet of Krishna. If one does not take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, he falls down, even from liberation. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra, however, gives liberation and at the same time offers shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. If one takes shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna after liberation, he develops his dormant, ecstatic love for Krishna. That is the highest perfection of life.
Hare Krishna. So the highest perfection of life is to develop affection and appreciation for this holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So thank you, dear devotees, for bearing with me for the last little over an hour. I hope that it was a little bit of use. Thank you to Gauranath Trust Prabhu, Dinabandhu Prabhu for giving me the opportunity to talk. It was very nice to go through the pages of Sri Chaitanya Chaitamrita, and I thoroughly enjoyed and benefited from this service. So thank you once again. So we've got about 15, 16 minutes. If anybody wants to share any realizations or comments or questions, we can try and have them now. Hare Krishna.
May I say something, Prabhu?
Yeah, sure.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So, thank you, Mother Prabhu. It was a beautiful, beautiful class. And I never knew the origin of Haridas Thakur, that he was Lord Brahma himself. So thank you for that. And yeah, I often think of Haridas Thakur, how he could have, because we struggle to chant, how he could have chanted, whole day the Lord's names. And I just ask for mercy. At least let us, chant 16 rounds offenselessly. So
Yeah.
thank you, Prabhu, for telling us the true identity, who he actually was.
Absolutely. Yeah. The acharyas tell us that our situations are so comfortable. We're living in a nice house. We have a very designer bead bag and some fragrance and incense going around. And here Srila Haridas Thakur was being beaten in 22 marketplaces and he was still chanting them. So we are at least not being subject to such misery. So what is our problem? What is the problem? Prabhupada says so many times. Why can't you take up to devotion?
Absolutely. So true. Absolutely. What is the problem? We are so laid back and so comfortable in our zones that we forget how the acharyas really strove.
Yeah, and the point in the last purport is that there is absolutely no real gain in achieving even liberation. The futility of material achievements is just it's totally futile, essentially, because even from a liberated stage you fall down if you don't achieve bhakti. And we're so fortunate that within ISKCON and several other organizations, but especially here, it's made very clear that let's move from Namabhash to Shuddhanam, which is bhakti. Thank you for the commentary, Mataji. Anybody else?
Actually, I could add something to the glorification of Haridas Thakur. I was reading in the Madhya Leela. There is a beautiful reference of Haridas Thakur there in chapter 11 in the Beda Kirtan pastimes. The verse itself, the translation of the verse goes like this. Here are Murari Gupta, Pandita Narayana, and Haridas Thakur, the deliverer of the whole universe. I just like how all the other names are taken, and then when it says Haridas Thakur, it says the deliverer of the whole universe. So he was a very, very exalted saint. And as you have explained everything else about him, I think it's a very nice reference. There's actually another reference. If there's time, I could talk about, but if there isn't, I'm quite happy to wait and maybe speak another time.
Go for it.
There's another verse which actually, again, in the Madhya Lila, it talks about Haridas Thakur's humility, Vaishnav humility. Haridas Thakur, Lord Chaitanya wanted to know, where is Haridas Thakur? Haridas Thakur was not coming near the Lord because he considered himself such a low person that he wasn't going to go near the Lord. And the translation of that verse is that although Haridas Thakur was such a highly exalted Vaishnav, he was addressed as Haridas Goswami. He still did not like to disturb the common sense of the general populace. At the time, someone who was a Muslim was not allowed to come into the temple, and he didn't want to disturb what people are thinking. So while he was addressed as a Thakura or a Gosani, which you only get that kind of title if you're very highly elevated, and highly elevated Vaishnavas, still he did not want to disturb the rules. He was quite happy to just follow the regulations and not enter the temple, didn't want to go anywhere near it. And how it's described here is this is Vaishnav humility. So he wasn't going to argue with anyone on what he's allowed to serve, what he's not allowed to serve. And my takeaway from this is that when sometimes we are in a temple community and someone is allowed to do something and someone is not allowed to do something, I think at that point, it's a nice thing to remember that someone as highly elevated as Haridas Thakur did not argue with the sentiment, which is not the correct sentiment. I mean, everybody is equal and everybody should be allowed to enter and take darshan of the Lord. But he didn't argue with that. Hence, when we are put in a position where we may want to argue with why we are not allowed to do a service, maybe we can practice this humility and practice that maybe we are not being allowed to by the Lord's desire that we need to not be doing this service. We need to do something else rather than argue the point. So I like to always take away a practical point from when I'm reading as to this is so beautiful, but maybe I need to imbibe this in my life.
No, wonderful point. I think we need more hands than we have. So I think there is plenty for everyone. So I don't think there'll be a scenario where you will have no service. Yorana Trust Prabhu will ensure that you have some engagement. All you have to do is just give him a call.
No, I'm not saying it like that. I'm just saying sometimes you have to think like this.
There's plenty to do. If not this, something else.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway, I just thought it was very nice very nice.
Amazing. Yes, Prabhu.
Hari Ball. So that's wonderful, Mataji. Thank you for those nice realizations. Mother Kumar Prabhu, wonderful class. Very nice to hear. One point really touched. There is a but as well for the devotion, advance in the devotional service. So I never thought in that direction. So this was. So Krishna says in the Gita that there is no loss or damnation in this endeavor. But there is a but. What a wonderful way you put it there. How nicely you link this. If you do Vaishnava offense to a Vaishnava, everything what we do is completely taken away. So mad elephant offense. So thank you very much. And it's Lord Brahma actually who gave this Hare Krishna mantra to Narad. When Narad approached his father, Lord Brahma, asking for a best medicine for the age of Kali, and he looked at all the Vedic literature and he said, "This is the best medicine that I could find for this particular age." And he gave that mantra, and he came as Haridas Thakur, and he put into practice. He not only said that, but he put into practice.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you so much for taking us through the Haridas Thakur pastimes. Really appreciate. I've got a couple of announcements to make. A week from tomorrow, that is next Saturday, we will be doing Ratha Yatra in collaboration with Gita Bhavan. They are installing Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra, and they've asked our help in preparing prasadam as well as doing some kirtan while the installation ceremony takes place. At the end of the ceremony, there will be Ratha Yatra as well. Radhamohan Prabhu informed me that Ratha Yatra will start at 12. So if you all can come around 12 o'clock, then we can participate in the procession. And then at the end, we all can take prasadam. So that's next Saturday. That's next Saturday, 21st of this month. On 22nd, we have Balram Jayanti. So Balram Jayanti, that's falling on Sunday. So there will be fasting till noon. The plan is that we have usual schedule. However, we will have in-person class in the temple at the back garden, weather permitting. If the weather doesn't permit, then we try to allow devotees come and sit in different rooms. Of course, they all can wear masks and sit in different rooms. But if the weather permits, we would like to do this in the back garden. And there will be morning Mangal Harti, followed by the program starts at 11:30 to 12:30. We will have class 12:30. There will be Harti, and then we can do some kirtan and break our fast in the temple itself. So you need not cook at home. So if you just come to this temple program, you'll be taken care. So that's 22nd. That's a week on this Sunday. And also, I've got some good news to share that we have managed to book Jain Samaj for Janmashtami. That's confirmed. So the full schedule of Janmashtami program will be out in the next couple of days. But please make a note that this year we will be doing Janmashtami in Jain Samaj. So that's it from my side. Anything, Madhav Kumar from book table?
Just after Janmashtami is Prabhupada Day, that is in the temple, isn't it?
That is, yes, sorry. 31st August, and that is just a day after Janmashtami. We always celebrate the Prabhupada Appearance Day. And this year is special because it is 125th appearance anniversary of Srila Prabhupada. So we will be celebrating that in the temple itself.
Okay, so please book your holidays, people. I've already booked mine.
Wonderful.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, His Grace Madhav Kumar Prabhu ki jai, Ananta Kodi Vaishnavinda ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari. Bolo Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Hare Krishna.